Welcome to the 9 Elements podcast, brought to you by Restore Hyper Wellness. I'm your host, Eric Hinman. Each week, I sit down with trailblazers in the fitness, nutrition, and wellness communities, exploring how they optimize their daily lives for ultimate performance to do more of what they love. I'm a 5-time Ironman athlete, brand builder, and someone who's obsessed with health and wellness, structuring much of my day around fitness and recovery protocols. On today's episode, I chat with Angela Gargano, a 4-time American Ninja Warrior, Oxygen magazine cover model, and pull-up expert. Angela's fitness journey defied the odds. After returning from an ACL injury, she refocused her goals and has become one of the world's most authentic and relatable voices in fitness. What's up, Angela? How are you this morning?
So good. I'm so excited to see you. So excited to see you in the garage.
I know. Yeah, you recognize the space. We turned the garage into the gym, which you know, and now the podcast studio. Very
cool.
Angela has spent several hours on this pull-up bar right behind me, guys. So
love that bar.
So for those unfamiliar, Angela is a very dear friend of both my girlfriend Sarah, and she is an American Ninja Warrior. How many times have you been on American Ninja Warrior?
4-time American Ninja Warrior.
4-time American Ninja Warrior, and also a fitness model, a figure model. What would be the correct term for what you were doing before American Ninja Warrior?
Yeah, so before American Ninja Warrior, I was doing fitness competitions. I have the title of Miss Fitness America 2016, and that's when you were like doing a bunch of crazy flips on a stage, and then you'd walk out and, you know, do all the posing and stuff along those lines. A little bit of a step down from like figure and like big bodybuilding.
Gotcha. How did you get into that?
It's so wild. I mean, it was kind of a little bit on accident. I was actually working as a biochemist for a good like 2 to 3 years. And I was just trying to find something to do after my college. I was a college gymnast. I was like, what am I going to do? I feel like I need something. I'm so bored like in the lab every single day. And I just kind of ran into it with a friend saying, hey, you know what? I saw somebody do this. You should try it. And I looked into it and I was like, you know, I love the flipping part, but the whole walking in heels and like posing thing, I was a little bit like, I don't know about this. But as I got into it, I was like, this is awesome. This is kind of like that next thing after my college gymnastics career.
Got it. So it blended gymnastics with figure basically, right?
Yeah. So I still kind of felt, because after you do a college sport, you're kind of like after that, everyone thinks that you're set and you're like, oh, you know exactly what to do with working out. And I just had no idea because I just didn't have a coach anymore. I didn't have a meet or anything I was training for. I didn't really know what the next thing was. I was so used to just showing up to practice and them just kind of telling me what to do.
Mm-hmm. So with that, did your diet have to change a lot? What differences in training were there? You know, were you doing bodybuilder type workouts and lots of hypertrophy work?
Yeah, that's kind of where I discovered like actual working out, because before, again, it was just showing up, doing the gymnastics, conditioning, you know, doing your skills, tumbling, things along those lines. Mm-hmm. And then when I got into the fitness competitions, I had to learn how to actually lift in the gym, actually, you know, use a barbell. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff beforehand. And then food wise, you know, obviously a lot of this is about your food. I think what it really taught me was that, you know, I can't just be eating pizza and donuts and things along those lines. I need to make sure that I'm eating healthier, and actually helped me a lot really understand a lot more of what your body actually needs to fuel. I almost wish I knew that when I was in gymnastics, but yeah, the food was definitely a lot, you know, more, I guess, strict when I was doing the competitions, but I use a lot of what I learned then, and I make it a little less strict now and a little more flexible with everything that I'm doing now.
Gotcha. So did you have a coach during those years that was programming for you? What was the programming like? What was the split between, you know, did you have leg days, push days, pull days?
Yeah, so I actually met this woman. So the woman who helped me get into it, her name is Kathy Savage. Mm-hmm. And I sat into her office just as like this young girl having no idea what to do. And she asked me a bunch of these questions. And then she was like, okay, cool, we're going to fully sponsor you for these competitions. And I remember being like, excuse me? Like, you don't even know me. Like, what if I'm awful? She's like, I can just tell. I can tell you're determined and that we're going to figure it out. And she was the one who gave all the programming. So I got my programming every single month from her. Our splits were basically, you know, an upper body day, 2 upper body days, 2 lower body days. And then she would program in like what the cardio would be. So a lot of times it would be, we were experimenting with 3 days of steady state cardio at first, and then 2 days of like a HIIT sprint type situation. And then every single week I'd check in with the coach, and they would kind of adjust some of the stuff to see what would work best for my body. Because actually at first when I started doing that, I lost too much weight. because I was now eating clean finally and not eating pizza and donuts
Sure.
and stuff like that. And then I was doing all this extra cardio that I didn't have before. So they actually had to, feed me more and take out some of the cardio at the beginning because they're like, you're losing weight way too fast.
Interesting. And was it hypertrophy type sets that you were doing? Was it, heavier percentage work? What were the sets and reps like?
Yeah, it was basically, supersets. So a lot of times we'd do, you'd start a little light. So we'd start maybe with like 12 reps of an exercise, then go down to 10 and make a little heavier, 8, get a little heavier, 6, the heaviest that you can go. So we did things along those lines. And then when I was training as well, I had to be able to still flip and stuff like that on stage. So a lot of times it would be paired with something explosive. So it would be like, okay, cool, I'm going to do like this heavy lift and then I'm going to go hop right into some like squat jumps or something explosive so that I can make sure when I was on stage flipping that I could really make sure that everything was ready to work.
Very cool. And how long is the routine on stage?
Oh, it's like 3 minutes. And that's a long time. So 3 minutes doesn't sound like a long time until you're actually doing it because it's constant. Like you're just flipping and moving and they want to see you, you don't have to necessarily flip because a lot of the girls who were dancers who were in that, but they want to see your strength. They want to see the cool things that you can do. They want to see that, you're doing some cool push-ups on stage and things along those lines. So that you try and cram in as much as humanly possible in that 3 minutes, which is pretty wild.
Wow, so cool. And is there like one main show? Are there various shows that lead to like a championships? What's the process to be crowned the champion?
Yeah, so basically they have like these little mini shows that are local, and if you win certain shows that are qualified to get you into a pro, then you'll become a pro. And then when we're at the pro, you can only go to the pro shows. The pro shows are only in Las Vegas and Miami. I think there might be some overseas. So all the best of the best would always show up to the shows. So my goal was to win. I won the pro division. So I literally did whatever I could to get that pro card. And when I got there, I was against the best in the world, which there was only a select few. So there's only like 15 people from all over the world. There's someone from Romania, Finland. And it was kind of like the movie Bring It On. Like you walked in and like we knew like we were there to battle. Like and
so cool.
Into the routines, which is wild. Yeah.
That's awesome. It sounds like this should be like a Netflix series, kind of like Cheer, I think this would be really entertaining for people to follow the journey of people like you. That's cool.
And to bring them all together from like, since again, Romania, Finland, and that was her life. So like Anka, who was one of the head people, if you're in Romania, she's like famous there. Like this is like a very big thing that she did. So yeah, I think it definitely should have been a TV show when we were doing it because we definitely had the battle and all the stuff going. Like we, loved each other, but we were also like, we're there to win.
Mm-hmm. So cool. So during that time, you learned a lot about nutrition. Were you tracking macros? What were the macros that you were trying to hit? Give me kind of a day in the life of eating back then.
Yeah, so I didn't do any numbers. Numbers for me really stressed me out. I couldn't get behind it. I would then stress over like exactly the numbers. So instead of doing numbers with me, she would just kind of give me like a guideline. So she would say to me, you're going to have this amount of protein in this many meals. Then you're going to have this amount of carbs. It'd be like 1/4 of a cup, she'd say, or something along those lines. And you kind of just would be able to like visualize it when you would do it. So she would kind of adjust up to the base of the show. But kind of like what I'm doing now, I started getting like really like I need more carbs than maybe most people because my body like loves them. So I would always be doing maybe I think it was like 6 ounces of protein. That could be like chicken, steak, and stuff like that. And then it was like 1/4 of a cup of carbs, although I always needed more. Like I did like 2 cups. Half a cup because I was like, this is like this small. Like I can't eat that. And then I'd always make sure that I had some fruit, some veggies, and a good fat in my plates. That's literally what I would do. I would look down, but I didn't actually track the numbers because again, it stressed me out like a lot. I know for some people, some of my friends though in it, they had to like tracking for them, like really help them understand exactly what they needed to eat.
Yeah, I'm the same as you when it comes to eating. I kind of eat the same things at the same times each day. And, obviously my protein intake is a bit higher weighing more. Carbs, I don't respond as well to carbs. I respond better to like high protein, high fat, I've found. And, it's interesting. Each person is different when it comes to this stuff. And it really just takes tinkering to figure out like, how do I feel my best from a performance standpoint, a mental clarity standpoint, an energy standpoint. And I have some CrossFit athlete friends like Sam Dancer who does 600, 700 grams of carbs a day, like insane amounts. And he feels great doing that. So yeah, I think there's to each their own, and there needs to be a lot of exploration with, figuring out what works for you. But ultimately, I think it just comes down to structure. You had your structure, and even though you weren't counting, like you had a pretty good idea of, what it was by, measuring it out or just eyeballing it, I'm sure, after a while. And then it's just eating pretty much the same foods at the same times each day. And that's kind of what I've landed on, and just putting eating on autopilot. I feel like when you make too many decisions around food, that's when you get in trouble.
Yeah, a lot of times. So now I'm very intuitive too. Like if I'm not crazy hungry in the morning, then I don't eat.
Yeah.
If I am, then I do. As soon as I'm hungry, I eat. So I've just become very intuitive. But it took me doing all that stuff, like you just said, like going through that process of, experimenting, seeing, oh man, I'm actually feeling like pretty tired. I think I do need more carbs, and playing with that for me to finally get to the point where I can do what I'm doing now. So like you said, and I love that you said that like Sam Dancer like has a lot of carbs. You don't work well. It's really important for you to understand what's going to work best for you.
Yeah, 100%. So how many years were you doing the fitness competitions? 2, 3, 4 years?
So it was like 4 years, and then I went in on that last competition. And I was like, if I win this, I'm retiring.
Yeah, and you won it, and you retired.
Yes.
And so was it just, did you get to a point where you were burned out from the training, you were burned out from the competitions? What kind of led to wanting to, you retired on top, that's awesome, but I'm assuming something led to that decision.
Yeah, I think I was doing so many competitions, like all the time. It was my life. I was always training for the next competition. As soon as one was over, I was like ready to go into the next one. And you're right, like after a while, kind of gets burned out. I also felt like a lot of the people who were on the pro team were kind of like retiring around that point too. So it was kind of like, all right, we're all kind of ready to kind of go on to that next thing type situation. And the federation was changing a bit. But yeah, I definitely felt like having to be because I had to be pretty strict for those, especially when it got closer to the show. It was getting kind of tiring. Like I was ready to just have the, pumpkin muffin I really wanted with my friend, my friends, and not have to worry about it. And now I can do that because I'm not worried about, someone's going to be judging the way my body looks on stage.
Yeah. There's so much sacrifice that comes with, being one of the best at anything. And that definitely gets tiring when you want to just kind of go back to living a semi-normal life and just feeling good day in and day out. And, I always tell people like my Ironman years, I'm so glad I wrote that chapter, but I definitely didn't feel my best. It was too one-dimensional. It was too much endurance. It was, too much sacrifice and being too selfish. I lost some great relationships, and, I sacrificed going on vacations, and I sacrificed going out late at night and having a glass of wine. So, there's definitely a lot of sacrifice that comes with it. And, I think we both still live a very structured life around health and wellness, but, it's flexible. Like if someone asks me to mountain bike today, it's like, yeah, of course I'm going to mountain bike. I don't have to completely focus on one routine because my sole goal is to get to the championships in something.
Absolutely. Yeah. My mind was definitely set on that. And I had to definitely say no to so many different things that I was doing. I didn't want to get hurt before the competition. Like I didn't want to mess anything up. So yeah, definitely better to be flexible, but glad that I did it.
Yep. Was there any identity crisis in, leaving that sport, having been at the top? I'm assuming that, you're known as the person who's winning these fitness competitions, and then all of a sudden you're not doing it. Do you have to say, who am I now,
Oh, absolutely. I think that definitely after the big competition, they used to call it like post-show blues, but especially after winning, you're right. You're kind of like, now what? I did it. Like I hit the goal. And that's kind of when you recognize and realize that it's not the end goal that actually matters. Like actually getting there and winning it didn't matter. It was the whole entire process. It was the amazing people that I met. It was the competitions where like I broke my foot and didn't make it and had to keep trying and all these different things. So you recognize at the end that it's not actually about winning it, which is pretty interesting. Luckily, right after when I was kind of done with it, that's when I hopped right into ninja. But that was now, like you said, going into something that I was completely not good at. Like I was not good at it. I was just learning, and I had to be that beginner again instead of being at the top. So after that was like, I'm going to try and enjoy this process a little bit more and recognize that even after I got that, title, like nothing changed.
Yeah, you're so right. It so is the process, like enjoying it. And once you no longer enjoy the process anymore, even if your identity is tied to it, like it's time to make that switch. And same for me with Ironman. I mean, there was probably a year at the end of when I was doing Ironmans where I was going through the motions. I wasn't passionate about it anymore. I had reached my goals within the sport, but I still continued to do it because I had this identity as an elite Ironman athlete and felt that like, okay, that's who I am now. Like I have to live up to that, even though it wasn't what my soul wanted anymore. It wasn't something I really enjoyed. So it was difficult to, step away. And again, like it was CrossFit for me that I got into, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm starting at ground zero again.
It's also giving your permission, like you said, to, if you're not feeling like it's lighting you up as much as it was, giving yourself permission that you can do something else now. It's okay. Like you don't have to stay in it. Like I think some people get stuck in like, do I just keep going even though I'm not really feeling it? It's like, no, you don't have to. You can do all the different things. You can try all the stuff.
Can't agree more. Yeah, and your identity doesn't have to be tied to, some kind of external achievement. It can be just your own internal achievement, which I think both of us are after now, where it's just like, I just want to be a little bit better each day, and I want to meet some new people, and, I want to give back as much as I can.
Absolutely. I definitely think that giving back and helping others with the process and the journey that I've been on is now my next goal. And it's like so fulfilling to be able to do that. Each person that messages you, I'm sure you get this too, when people message you on Instagram and they're just like, what you said really helped me today. What you did, oh, it's really cool. You helped me get started in the gym. Now that like lights me up way more. And it's way less about me now.
Same. So you're out of the fitness competitions. How soon after were you starting to train for? It sounds like you already had a pretty good background with gymnastics and the fitness competitions to be able to do American Ninja Warrior type competitions. But yeah, what was that process like to say, I want to try American Ninja Warrior? And then how do you get on American Ninja Warrior?
Yeah, so same thing as like the competitions, it all happened on accident. My other friend who was a mentor who was helping me with the fitness competitions was trying out, and I was really great at like videography and picture stuff, so I was helping her make a submission video. So I was helping her make the video. While I'm helping her, my friend that I'm with was like, you really need to try out for this. And I was like, no, like I don't want to step on her toes, like this is her thing, like I don't know, I don't even know what the show is. He's like, I think that you really should just put this in and I think like that doesn't matter. Like you both should be able to try out. I'm like, all right. So I put my submission video in. We made it super quick, just said a little bit about my life, how I was a biochemist and thing along all this stuff in there. And then showed a little bit of the athletics that I had. And then I forgot about it, honestly. I forgot that I auditioned. And then I was at a fitness competition when they called me to say that I got on the show. And I thought it was an 818 number, so it's a California number. And I was just like, this is probably spam. So I just let it go to my inbox. And then I listened and it was like, you made it to American Ninja Warrior. I was like, oh, shit. And they were like, you have to be on in 2 weeks. So I had 2 weeks. Yeah. So I wasn't even training because I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think that I was like good enough to be on it. I didn't want to step on this. So the girl who tried out was really big in the fitness competitions. I'm like, I didn't think I could ever be as good as her with anything. So it was wild. So I had 2 weeks to figure out how to ninja. And luckily I posted on social media and there's people in the area who were like, we have gyms in our backyard. Like you can come, we'll teach you how to do some stuff. And they were so helpful. And I think when I started recognizing that these people who don't even know me are willing to help me become good at this sport, that's pretty cool. So I showed up and I got to, the first one I went to was in Pittsburgh and they film overnight. So I was actually working the overnight shift at that time for a job. So I was set and ready to do the overnights. So you film at night and you literally have one shot at the course. They show you the course and you literally have one shot to make it or fall. And that's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
How'd you do?
So the first one, I actually made it. Everyone was falling on this thing called the snake crossing. Everybody, and the producers were just like, "Oh God, everyone's falling on this obstacle. We gotta like make it easier or something." So I fell on that one, but I made it pretty far on it. And then after I became pretty addicted to the sport, I was like, "This is really cool. Like I think I could be really good at this." And again, I love the people. I love the energy. So I trained, and then I auditioned the next year for season 8. Didn't get on. I auditioned for season 9. Didn't get on, and then finally auditioned again for season 10 and was able to come back on to season 10. And at that point I was like strong. I had been competing in now ninja competitions that were local. I was at the ninja gym late at night doing all these cool obstacles and learning all these different things. So I felt like pretty confident when I got back on season 10.
So cool. So are these seasons once a year, or are there multiple seasons in a year? How many years span was this from that first season to when you actually got on again?
Yeah, so it's each year. So they only do one per year. And then there's different places, right? So there'll be like season 7, but you might be in Pittsburgh or you might be in LA or you might be, so they just take you by region. So one season they do the different regions, the top 15, they move on and they wind up going to Vegas, and that's another time within the year, and that's when everyone battles to beat Mount Midoriyama, which is a massive rope climb that you have to do in a certain amount of time.
Got it. So it was 3 years of 4 seasons for you to get back onto the show.
Yeah, back on, and then that was on season 10, 11, and then 12 or 13. I know COVID messed that up. I think it was 13.
Gotcha. So it was like 2018, 19, 20 when you were on the seasons.
Yeah. So, and then season 10 is the one where I tore my ACL on the TV show, which is wild.
How'd you do that?
So I was, like I said, I felt so strong. I was so confident going into this course, and I knew all I had to do was make it past this obstacle called the wing nut, which is like a sideways obstacle that you lache side to side with. And I'm like, I got this. Like I just felt so good about it. So gone on, I literally get past that obstacle, and as soon as I'm about to dismount to land on to pass, and that would have made me the top female. I landed, and since it's a sideways obstacle, I went off, and when I went to turn, I must have like not cut enough, and I just collapsed and tore my ACL right on that dismount. So I didn't get to do the finals that year because I was taken off the course. So it was literally devastating, but it was the best thing that's ever happened to me. I needed that to happen because it awakened me to, you don't know how long you're going to have your body. I owned a gym at the time in Rhode Island. I'm like, I don't want to live in Rhode Island. I'm like, I want to go to New York. I want to do all this stuff. And it kind of like my life kind of flashed before my eyes. So that injury really helped me to not only shut down my gym, move to New York, but then actually work my body and learn how to use my body even more properly, because I was just kind of like throwing myself around on these obstacles. So I was able to come back the next year and like make it to finals, blow everything away, and just like crush. But that moment I needed that injury to do a lot of the stuff in my life. So back then I would have told you, oh my God, I hate my life. And now I'm like, oh no, that's exactly what I needed.
Wow, so cool. So moments like that, kind of like COVID, there are times for people to, just take a step back and reflect and be like, wow, life is short, like bad things can happen. Am I really doing what I want every day? Am I in the environment I want to be in? Am I surrounded by the people I want to be with? Am I in the business I want to be in? So that's cool. So you tore your ACL. How soon after did you sell the gym? How soon after were you moving to New York? What was the recovery process like?
It was pretty quick. I think so I tore my ACL in March. And then I had torn my left one in college, so like I already knew like what doctor I was going to use. I was set. I was like, I knew exactly what I need to do. I'm like, I need to rehab my leg. I need to do all these things. So got the surgery, and then I think right after the surgery, I decided in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to shut this gym down. So I'm like, what does that look like? How do I do that? Like, how do I tell all these people that I've now made this giant community here in Rhode Island? How do I tell them that like I don't want to do this anymore and I'm going to leave? So it was by the end of the summer that I had completely shut down the gym. I believe end of the summer I shut down the gym, and then October I moved everything out of everything I had in Rhode Island, and I moved over to New York City and kind of started that journey over there. So it was really quick. I was just kind of like, I got to do this. I gotta get in, gotta get out.
That's so cool. I feel like once you make the decision, it's been already subconsciously in your head for so long that when you finally commit to it, it happens fast. It was the same for me with Denver, where I had like 3 years in Syracuse, New York, where I felt like I was going through the motions. I was, really enjoying the time spent with people in New York and people in LA and other bigger cities where, there just were like, bigger thinking. And then, when I came to Colorado and loved it here and finally made the decision that like this should be home base, like everything moved really fast. So I feel like these things, looking back, someone in the moment might be like, that seems like a rash decision, but it was like 3 years in the making subconsciously of not really enjoying the chapter you were writing in life. And then when you finally commit to making that decision and ripping the Band-Aid off that last chapter, it moves fast. And yeah, I mean, in hindsight, every single time I've made one of those decisions, I wish I made it sooner.
Absolutely, every single time. For me, I was really worried about the people around me. I was like, oh man,
Sure.
like I believe in these people, but I look back now, I'm like, they're fine. Everyone's fine. I'm like,
Yeah, people
everything's
get
fine.
it. People get it. Everyone's going through their own journey, and I think they understand when someone veers off the current journey they're on to do something different.
Yeah, and that has happened recently too. I had a membership online for a while and I realized same thing. I had it for like 2 years. I was like, you know what? Like I'm not really, my heart's not feeling it. I'm not feeling like fulfilled by it. And I went back and I thought back to that last moment when I shut down my gym and I just thought to myself, because I'm freaking out and I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, they were okay. Everyone was okay. Everything was okay. And you got to go and do that next thing. So knowing that, like you said, it's not a rash decision. And I think that's important, like you said, for people to realize, because I've definitely made a lot of pivots in my life, but there were decisions that I just made like that day. Like it was something that was literally in my mind for like months to come until you finally are just like, you know what? Like we have a short life. Let's just do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my barometer for that stuff is if I'm not completely in the moment in it, if my mind is wandering, if I'm thinking about being somewhere else, doing something else, that means that, that environment, that activity, whatever, isn't right for me. And that's when I, go find something where I'm completely present with whatever it is.
Yeah. And it's okay to try all those different things. It's a reminder for everybody. Try the things. You don't have to necessarily stay in it forever. I think that's maybe what we get from, just generations of growing up. You just think, like, I always thought after college I had to stay in that biochem job forever after, and like that was the end. And noticing that you don't have to do that. You don't have to stay in anything that you're doing. If you said, if you're not feeling happy, you can always make a shift.
Yeah. I mean, I think, our parents' generation and prior were really programmed to like picking a direction and staying in it. And I feel like our generation and younger has been, programmed to like follow your heart and, find things that you really enjoy doing. You only live once. And if you want to build your own business, build your own business. If you want to, work for various companies to, help build different brands, like, jump ship and, go from something to something else that you really enjoy. And we all change over time. I think our skill sets change, what we enjoy changes, the people we want to be around changes, the environments we want to be in change. So it's okay to make those changes.
Yeah, and I think this is us like right now, both whoever's listening, it's like we're giving you permission.
Yeah.
Change if you want to.
Humans continue to spend more and more time in front of a screen, and while productivity is on the rise, we are becoming increasingly sedentary as a society. However, movement through physical activity helps us feel better, function more efficiently, sleep better, and ultimately helps reduce the risk of many chronic diseases. During Angela's episode, we've been discussing everything about her journey, from gym rat to ninja warrior, and that comes down to movement, which Angela knows all too well. From running pull-up classes to running sprints at her local track, Angela is constantly in movement and fully aware that recovery from movement will keep her going. Now, when I say movement can be helpful, I don't mean that you should go out and stack your week full of high-intensity workouts either. Simply walking can maximize longevity, promote cognitive performance, and help the body to maintain a healthy weight. Adding recovery to your wellness plan is also a beneficial tool to add. And now you can try it for yourself. 9 Elements listeners can receive 20% off your first Restore service using the code ELEMENTS20 when making your first appointment. That code again is ELEMENTS20 to save 20% when booking your first service with Restore. Yeah. So American Ninja Warrior, you're the season after you tore your ACL. How far did you get that season?
So I actually made it, I think that was like my worst season. That was like after, COVID and stuff like that had happened. And I also had my huge moment, right? It's like I had my, myself all over the taxis in New York City, tearing my ACL and having to come back. Like I had that awesome moment that had
Wow.
happened. So it was like the seasons after that was just kind of like extra because I'd worked so hard for this season 11 to come back and, show everybody that I came back with this ACL tear and I came back stronger. So the next season was kind of tough because everything had changed so much, with the pandemic happening. It was now filmed during the day. We all had to stay in our rooms. We didn't actually get to like really hang out with each other like we used to. It felt very different. So when I went in and I competed, I felt like, I don't know, I felt like that's probably why I didn't do as well. But I think I wound up getting out on like the third obstacle. And it didn't feel the same when I was on there. And that's part of the reason why I didn't wind up going back also this year as well. I was like, you know what? It's just like you said, pivoting wise, is like, I did it. I had this amazing moment. I was like, I think that I'm ready for the next thing.
Gotcha. So the exposure for you really came from your comeback story. People following your journey of, tearing your ACL, being injured, not knowing whether were going to be able to compete again, to coming back even stronger. And yeah, I think that's a valuable lesson that people really buy into stories, and people buy into hard work and perseverance. And, oftentimes it doesn't matter if you're the winner of the people just want to see someone who's super authentic, that's putting in hard work and that can achieve at a high level because of, the hours they put in.
Absolutely. And again, very relatable because I was telling people it's not just about like an ACL tear, right? Maybe it's a breakup, maybe you lost your job, maybe something happened. And that story of me having that comeback and, being really authentic and telling them how tough it was. Cause I made sure that I tracked my progress and I showed them how tough it was. Like I got a blood clot, all this stuff happened. Like it was not easy. Like I'm saying, oh, I just showed up and got back. No, it was like this whole journey. And everyone on social media, which was kind of cool about social media, was on the journey with me, which was really cool. So when they got to see the show, it was like this boost of like inspiration that they had, and the amount of messages that I got from people saying, hey, you know what, because you didn't give up, I realized that I'm going to keep going too. And then, like I said, that's then when my mentality shifted. Before it was about getting the, Miss America 2016. It was about being the winner of American Ninja Warrior. And then after that, I realized, you know what? It's not about that for me anymore. It's about helping others. And I think that's like why, again, the next year I came back and maybe wasn't feeling as like excited about like finishing or winning because I didn't care as much. I was like, this isn't about that for me anymore.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think we all go through that process of like doing things for ourselves early in life and then getting to a point where it becomes more about sharing your wisdom, sharing experiences with others. And, we're tribal in nature. And I think in our DNA is to help, to build communities and to inspire people and to, help people live their best life.
Yeah, exactly. It definitely feels a little bit different. And also that at that point too, that year, the year that I came back, the year after I came back, actually, that's when I finally got my cover of Oxygen magazine, which is something I was striving for since 2015. I was like, when I got into the fitness industry, I was like, I want to be on that magazine. But when I wanted to be on the magazine, it was because I just wanted to be on the magazine. Like, that's just what I wanted. I didn't really have like a full...
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like ego. I want to be on this. I want to be on the front of the magazine. When I got in the magazine in 2021, which was last summer, like that was the story about my ninja comeback. That was the story that was just made. I was way more proud of that person that was on that cover and on that magazine then than I would have been if I got it in 2015. So yeah, cool. All these things I think happen in due timing, and you shift. What you're doing these things for.
Mm-hmm. So walk me through the recovery process from the ACL tear. What types of recovery things were you doing to expedite the process to getting back?
Absolutely, yeah. So ACL tear, obviously very common. The first thing you want to do after you figure out that it's an ACL tear, after the swelling goes down, is you want to really strengthen the hell out of your quad, because after your surgery, your quad is going to disappear. It's pretty crazy. So if you can strengthen your leg as much as possible before you get into a surgery, that's going to be key. So get your quad, really strong. So that was literally doing simple exercises, like just squeezing it. That was making, doing the squats, because still when you have an ACL, you can still do a lot of the movements. As long as it's not painful, you can do a lot of the squats, you can do deadlifts, you can do all those different things, working on balance drills. So I really made sure that I strengthened the hell out of my leg, that I got all the range of motion back. And then after the surgery, same thing. The first thing you have to do is you have to squeeze. You have to get this to work again. It's wild. Like everything, when you get your surgery, it just disappears. Like you have no more muscle in your leg anymore. But if you had it before, you'll have it a lot faster going like after. My first surgery, I didn't know that. So I didn't do any of that stuff. So I was like, oh shit. So everything took a lot longer. This one, I was like prepared. I knew exactly what to do. Then the next thing is to make sure, after surgery, you have to move it. And this is going to depend on everybody's surgery, if you get like a meniscus tear and stuff like that. But if you just had ACL surgery, you need to get your range of motion back. So they normally give you something called a CPM machine, which I highly recommend. I didn't get it this time, but I feel like it's so important. You put your foot in this machine and you set degrees. They'll give you little checkpoints on how far to bend it. And they'll tell you to do it on your own, but it's hard to bend it on your own when it like hurts and you have all this stuff on it. So this machine, you put it in it and it just slides it up and down. And then every single week your goal is to get it a little bit more because you want to get as much bend as possible back into it. After you have all that back, then it's about like, let's get all that muscle back. Let's get that strength back. Let's get walking. Let's do a lot of like single leg movements and things along those lines. And what I did while I couldn't do the leg work, because again, you have to try and get the motion back and do a lot of the simple quad exercises, is I noticed that my core was not strong at all. Like I needed to definitely work on that. So I was able to work my upper body and my core a ton and working like real deep core muscles while I was having my leg recover. So there's a lot you can do while you're doing your recovery that doesn't necessarily have to do just with your leg.
Yeah, so it's not what you can't do, it's what you can still do. So yeah, using a ski erg or, various core exercises, Russian twists and sit-ups and yeah, I agree. I tore my MCL in 2016. I was fortunate that I did not have to get surgery, but like you, I had a tremendous amount of scar tissue and lost a lot of mobility, and it took me about a year to finally get that mobility back, and it was just like really working on deep squats and sitting on my heels and just like really stretching and trying to, just degrade that scar tissue so that I had that full mobility back. And after a year I finally got it back. But man, it's scary when your first time something like that happens, because that first week, 2 weeks, a month after, you're like, will I ever be able to run again? Will I ever be able to squat again? It just feels like you're never going to be able to do those things that you once did. And it really is amazing if you follow various protocols, how your body is able to heal itself and you're able to get back and even better than you were before.
Yeah, like you said, like, will I be able to run again? I remember sitting on the bike and like I couldn't rotate my leg all the way around yet, and just going into that PT session being like, I gotta get my leg around. I gotta be able to circle on the bike. And then once I got one, then I was like, okay, cool, now I can do some more. So definitely a lot of the basics, like you said. And it's also a great opportunity, like I said, to work on things maybe you weren't working on before. A lot of, especially with you two, right? We're working on these big movements, doing all those big things. It literally allows you to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, cool, let me work on these like smaller muscle groups that maybe I wasn't working on before, so that when I come back as an athlete, I can come back even stronger.
Yeah, I've done that with fortunately I haven't been injured since that, but I've had various tweaks and stuff. And, if something is tweaked, and then I just kind of resort to accessory work. And it's amazing doing, some of those bodybuilder type lifts, just like bent over, lat raises and, bicep curl stuff that I normally wouldn't target. It's amazing how much stronger I am when I come back to doing the complex lifts, because oftentimes with those complex lifts, which I think that should be the majority of your training, but I think you're missing strengthening some of those smaller tendons and ligaments with those more complex lifts. So I do think it's important to do accessory work, and typically 4 or 5 days a week at the end of my sessions, I'm doing another 15 minutes of those smaller isolated lifts now.
Absolutely.
Oh, so you've been injured now several times, ACL tears, and so what preventative measures do you take now? Is there a stretching routine that you have? Is there a warm-up routine? I know you led me through a warm-up routine when you first came out to Denver of like banded marches and stuff, and you were kind of appalled at how I got right into my workout, and I thought I had a decent warm-up. So walk us through, what you do for preventative measures.
Yeah, so I do what I like to call movement prep before I hop right right into my workout. So for me, again, and this is also understanding like your body, it seems like your body is able to hop right in and it feels pretty good. So that's great. Mine, if I do that, it's like really tough for me. So I have to do a nice warm up, and then I go into something I called movement prep, and it's going to depend on whatever the day that I'm doing. So if I'm doing upper body day, then I'm doing movement prep for my shoulders. So I'm doing maybe again like some banded lat pull downs, or I'm doing some scapular push-ups or things along those lines, and not a lot of them, but just enough to kind of get my body like kind of ready for whatever I'm going to put it into next. And then I also always do for no matter what, upper body or leg day, some kind of core prep. So that's like the boring dead bugs or something along those lines. It just gets my core ready so that when I go into those movements, a lot of times when I go into bigger movements, I'll like lose my core and I'll feel it in the wrong places. But if I do that first, I never ever feel it in the wrong places. For lower body, for me, it's like opening up the hips and working things because my hips get very, very tight. So a lot of stuff with the bands, like we were doing, like banded marches, hip flexor type of movements and things like that are really, really big for me. Also single leg movements, because a lot of the reason that I tore my ACL was I definitely had an imbalance in my leg. So making sure that I'm doing some kind of single leg movement before I hop into the workout. So that could be like marches, like we were saying, that could be little pogo hops on one leg or something along those lines. And again, it doesn't have to take a really long time, but it's really helped me so that when I'm hopping into these bigger, more explosive, crazy movements, that my body's ready and it's prepped, and it's not going to just like, again, start overcompensating in different areas because I didn't prep it in the right way.
Yeah, so it's a lot of activation drills. It's mobility drills to get a full range of motion before going into a more complex lift, and also warming up your central nervous system. Like I usually do about a 15-minute warm-up, and a lot of it for me is, a row, a ski, a bike, kind of building in intensity through several rounds of 10 to 15 calories. And, with that, I'm warming up my central nervous system for stress that's about to come with the lifts and, with the metabolic conditioning and aerobic conditioning. And then I agree with the activation stuff. You opened my eyes definitely to doing more with bands and doing definitely more like lateral stuff, because in CrossFit, so often you're just kind of in one plane. So, doing, side sprints or side shuffles, and just doing some stuff, again, that really opens up the lateral movement of your hip that you wouldn't warm up just by doing like air squats or something like that. And then, same with you. I like doing whatever the movements are for that day, movement patterns that kind of mimic it. So, if it's squatting, putting a band around my knees and doing some air squats, and then also doing some banded marches, either forwards or to the side, just warming up the hips for, that explosive movement that you want out of the hole with a squat. And then shoulder stuff. Yeah, I love doing anything with bands where it's face pulls or, just like warming up your rotator cuffs and warming up a lot of the smaller tendons, ligaments, and kind of lubricating your joints to prepare for heavier weight.
Absolutely. And I think when you're younger, like when I was younger, like I could probably get away with a lot more.
Definitely.
And
Same here.
as I've gotten older, I'm like, all right, like I do have to do those things. Like I probably wouldn't warm up. I like in gymnastics, like I probably hop right in and just start flipping around. And now I'm like, I'm going to think about that for a second before I do that.
Yeah, you have to, because I think we start thinking about longevity at a certain point. It's no longer about, the achievement aspect of trying to win something. It becomes more like, I just want to feel good day in and day out. I don't want to have down days. I don't want to be sore and achy. And, I want to be able to do this for a long time. So, I think your mindset starts to shift some in your 30s, 40s to longevity. And like, I want to do this when I'm 78,
Absolutely.
So I know you do cold exposure. We've done some ice baths together and jumped in some cold streams in Colorado. But what's your recovery routine right now? I know that you go to Squatch Frontier Fitness, which we both love. And how often are you doing ice baths, sauna? Are you doing red light therapy? What other recovery protocols are you doing?
Yeah, I'm honestly probably taking like 2 days rest now. I feel like my body really needs it, just because I think I go a little harder sometimes in my workouts. It depends on the week and like what I'm doing, but normally no matter what, every Sunday I'm doing the hot to cold exposure. I just love it. I do feel like after I'm very tired, so I have to do like that's why I like doing it on Sunday. It's kind of like a nice chill day to do it. So I'll do just like what you do. I do like 15 to 20 minutes in the sauna. The sauna is so hard for me, honestly. The end of it, I'm always like, oh my God. And then I hop into the ice bath. I do that for like 2 to 3 minutes. That's gotten a lot easier and it feels a lot better now doing that. And I'll do that like 3 to 4 times. What I've noticed with it is just a lot of like my joints feel really good now. I really do feel like I'm recovering better from it. And it's interesting because I feel like I have a doctor friend who's like, there's no actual, literature saying it actually does. I'm like, it does. Like, it does. It makes me feel so much better. When I wasn't doing it before, I didn't feel it. Like, I definitely felt a lot different. So Sunday, I'm always doing that. And then the other days, yeah, I'm normally just, actually taking it easy and not doing anything crazy. But red light therapy, I do that once in a while. I have a gym here that has that in there. So I haven't really experimented as much with that, but I've gotten really big on, again, the hot cold exposure. And then some days, after my workout, I know you're not supposed to do it like technically after your workout, right? Because it's supposed to I don't know.
Only if it's a hypertrophy session.
Yeah,
and only if you're going for a bodybuilder look,
Yeah, so I normally do like to do it after my leg day because of my knees. It just really helps me. I always wind up doing at least one dunk in the ice bath for at least 3 to 4 minutes after my leg day or my run or something along that lines. And it's helped me to not have any swelling in my knees or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the big thing with, sauna and cold exposure is what is your intention? And, for most, I think the intention is to feel good day in and day out. And, what the cold is doing, what the sauna is doing is it's increasing your circulation. It's increasing blood flow of oxygen-rich blood. So you're not going to feel as achy the next day. You're not going to be as sore the next day. The only time that I have read that cold exposure should not be done immediately after a workout is if you did a hypertrophy session and your sole goal is to gain muscle mass. So a bodybuilder. I mean, ideally, a bodybuilder would wait at least 4 hours after their hypertrophy session to do cold exposure. Again, if their sole intention is gaining muscle mass. But, you're still going to gain muscle mass by doing a strength training workout and doing cold right afterwards. But, yeah, if you don't want to short circuit the adaptation of cold exposure or the adaptation of inflammation coming immediately after a workout, then wait at least 4 hours after. Sauna, though, I've heard is the opposite, where sauna is actually really good immediately after any kind of training session, because your core temperature is already hot. You're going to get to a level of discomfort and detox faster than you would were you not working out immediately beforehand. And again, it's another thing that's going to increase the blood flow of oxygen-rich blood, so you recover faster so that you can do another training session the next day and the day after. So yeah, and these are the athletic benefits, but I'm sure you've experienced the mental and emotional benefits of cold and sauna as well, which I think are the most important benefits of it. Over time, you start to develop this incredible stress resilience and this really even temperament, and it takes something monumental now to stress me out or get me upset. I just feel so even keeled having done the sauna and cold exposure for the last 5 or 6 years now. And yeah, I mean, obviously immediately afterwards you get that serotonin boost. So, you feel kind of like you're on cloud 9. It's similar to a post-workout mental clarity, but you feel like this calm energy instead of after a workout where you usually have this high energy of wanting to talk to people and, So yeah, the benefits are just so tremendous, and I'm stoked that you're doing it, and I'm stoked that there's a place like Squatch Frontier Fitness in Austin that has such an awesome community based around the sauna and cold exposure.
And I love that that's what that's what we did. My friends and I did on Sunday. That was we were excited to do that. It's kind of cool how things have changed. When you start to meet the people that you're excited to be around and that are trying to better themselves, how your fun becomes let's go do sauna and ice.
Yeah.
We're not going out. We want to go do sauna and ice.
Yeah, well, I mean, I always say the conversations are similar to, if you go out drinking with your friend, you're super vulnerable. You have this tremendous mental clarity, and the conversations that you have with people in a sauna they're always amazing. You're captive in an environment. Your phone is going to overheat if you have it out for too long, so you're not bombarded with stimuli. So you have this captive environment where you're getting tremendous benefits, and you're able to have awesome conversations with people. So I think it's way better than going to a bar with your friends. Invite friends to come in the sauna with you, and you're going to bond with them over that discomfort.
Absolutely. And again, it's become like a very regular thing that all of us are doing together here, which is really awesome in Austin.
Yeah, so cool. You guys have such a great community in Austin. I love that whole Squatch Frontier Fitness crew, and Collective is awesome too. You guys have a really good health and wellness scene. How long have you been there now? Are you going up on 6-8 months? December is kind of when you moved there, right?
I literally came here on the 1st of January for New Year's. I'm like, I'm going to start off my year right with amazing people. So I came here in January, and I literally got an apartment like a week later. I'm like, what am I doing? I need to be here.
So cool. Yeah, environment is so important for happiness, and so important for the decisions that you're going to be faced with each day. If you're in, I'm not knocking New York City. I think New York City is a great place for a certain chapter of life, but, a lot of your decisions are going to be around going out and restaurants and, parties and clubs. And, you go to a place like Denver or Austin, and all of a sudden a lot of your friend group is going to be asking you to go paddleboarding on Lady Bird Lake and go for a run around Lady Bird Lake, and you go hit a strength session at Squatch and hit a sauna and recovery session. So yeah, kudos to you for choosing that environment. And I know that you've gone through various environments where, you probably weren't thriving, and you're like, okay, I need to find an environment where I'm thriving.
Absolutely. And I guess I didn't really know it existed. So I think for people like listening, they don't think it exists. It does. Like, I think because I had met you in New York City. And at that point, like I was meeting some pretty cool people there. So I am very grateful for that journey of being in New York City. But I didn't think it existed that I'm the person who wasn't drinking and wasn't doing that stuff. And when I finally came here and saw that, wow, people are like me. They don't need to drink. They want to do some, more exciting things in life. Like you said, like paddleboarding or going on adventures instead of using all their money to go out and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just not what I wanted. But knowing that you can find those groups of people, and they do exist. Yeah,
they definitely do. So how can someone get their first pull-up? You are a master of pull-ups. What is a progression for someone who is looking to get their first pull-up?
Yeah, I love that. So basically along my journey, I realized that so many females would come to me since I was a ninja, and they were like, oh, I just always wanted to get my first pull-up. And I just kept hearing that over and over again. And then I looked around, I'm like, there's literally nothing for females, especially because it can be very intimidating for females to actually get their pull-ups. I feel like males can get a little quicker because of their muscles and stuff like that. But the first thing I always tell them is to just hang on the bar. Just simple. Just start by hanging. Because if you can hang for at least 30 seconds, it's going to help build up your grip strength. That's going to help you get a little more confident and excited on the bar. So I just tell them to hang. I also tell people that, band-aid pull-ups aren't the best way to get your pull-up for real. You have to attempt them without the band, because the band is actually going to fling you up and help you with the hardest part of the pull-up, which is the bottom. So the bottom part of the pull-up is the hardest, and the band flings you up at that point. So you're not actually getting the strength you need for that. So I always tell them, make sure you're using a band that is actually challenging you if you're doing banding pull-ups. So something that is going to, maybe you're only going to get maybe 3 reps out of it, but that's going to actually help you recognize the muscle groups. And just like we were talking about with the central nervous system, a lot of times your mind and your body, it's not connected for the pull-up, because for females, again, we're not doing a lot of pulling motions in our everyday life. We might be picking up grocery bags and working on their biceps, which is why a lot of times the chin-up's a little bit easier, because you're used to kind of picking things up. We're used to pushing things away, pushing the door open, but you're not used to pulling anything down. So we need to actually make that connection between your brain and the lat and get it to work. So you might actually be strong enough to do it. It just might not be connected yet. So doing a couple of movements, I love doing single arm lat pull downs, but I have them tap the lat. I'm really sore right now as I'm tapping it. But tapping the lat, because it's going to help to get your mind to be like, oh, wait, I'm supposed to use that muscle to get me up. So yeah, just hanging on the bar, attempting it with a really light band. doing single arm lat pull downs and tapping it. Obviously there's 100 different things I could go through, but I've been able to help over 500 people get their first pull up, which I think is very exciting. It's not
So cool.
It's cool how many pull-ups I can do. That's awesome. But can I help other people get their pull-ups? I think that's the cooler feat, is seeing them get their pull-up. Because after someone gets their pull-up, it opens up a lot to their life. They might realize after they get their pull-up, which seemed really impossible, that they don't feel as intimidated to try a kettlebell swing. Or maybe they're able to like, oh, maybe I can start to run because I just did this thing that seemed really impossible. So getting the skill can really open your mind to all these other things that you're able to do that you thought was impossible.
Yeah, that's so cool. I agree that so much of fitness is shedding light on, other things you can do, expanding your mind to what is possible. And also, again, building that like grit and that stress resilience for everything else in life. If you practice doing hard things, when something hard that you don't want to happen happens, like you're going to be so much better at dealing with it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how many times per week for someone new would you prescribe trying to do pull-ups?
Yeah, I mean, I always tell them, 3 days a week to start to actually try the pull-up, but then also knowing that the pull-up is a full body movement. So when I do my programming, they have lower body days because you actually need to use your glutes. It's full body movement. So you're using your glutes, you're using your core, you're using your upper body. So I also have them doing different movements like deadlifts, right? Because deadlifts, you have to lock out your lats to protect your low back and make sure that you can bring the bar up. So you can actually work on the pull-up by like not working on the pull-up in kind of a cool way. But like hanging on the bar, like I think 3 days a week is like really good to make sure that you're, getting some rest time in between that with the upper body. And then on those in-between days, working on different movements, like again, deadlifts and things along those lines that you are actually using it, but just in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Just trying to find ways to engage those muscle groups, because so much of strength training is, that neurological connection, brain to muscle, understanding, what muscles need to fire to do something.
Absolutely.
So how do you feel your best? What is your current training split to feel your absolute best? How many days per week are you strength training? How many days per week are you doing conditioning? What type of aerobic conditioning? Is it anaerobic conditioning?
Yeah, so right now, what I'm noticing I feel the best right now, I'm like, my body's loving sprints right now. So I'm doing, no matter what, 2 days of sprints. I do them in the morning. I do 15-minute sprints. So I go to a track right here. So I sprint the straight and I walk the corner for 15 minutes. My body is loving that. Like I'm feeling stronger. I'm feeling more confident. It's not as long as like, as, I don't know, it doesn't feel as intense as like just running a mile and stuff like that. So I've been doing the sprints 2 days a week. Upper body, I'll normally do, 2 days of upper body and then 2 days of lower body, but the lower body one day will be more of like a glute based workout. The other one will be more of like, squats and working on, the fronts of my legs. So I always like divide them into two, and then always 1 day of yoga. So right now that's what's feeling really great for me. I used to do more running and stuff like that, but I just haven't been, but the sprints have just really made me feel really good right now.
That's cool. Yeah. Anaerobic conditioning. I've been telling people, and I've obviously had years of endurance training and high volume of aerobic training, and I feel my best when I'm kind of going back and forth between a strength training and anaerobic conditioning day, and then the next day more of an aerobic conditioning day, mountain biking, trail running. But I've also learned that I do not feel my best if I go over about 90 minutes in aerobic activity. And I know that sounds like a lot to most, but I used to train for 5 hours of aerobic training a day in the Ironman years. So 60 to 90 minutes of aerobic activity day one, and I'm stoked for it because I had 1 day off of aerobic activities, and then I'm stoked to go back to the gym and do strength training and anaerobic conditioning the next day. And my energy levels are super high, feel strong, powerful, aerobic, explosive, like everything well-rounded, as opposed to just super strong or super endurance fit. And if you're not looking to compete at a high level in something, I really feel like that training split works really well, where it's anaerobic efforts like sprints, assault bike intervals, just high output, but short duration. Like it took me a long time to wrap my mind around, 15 seconds, 30 seconds of all out effort is super meaningful to your nervous system, to, developing that explosive power, to increasing your lactate threshold, and, rest 90 seconds. You end up resting more than you're working out with some of these, HIIT type intervals, but you have to in order to back that effort up at that high intensity again and again. And yeah, damn, I feel so good because I was listening to Andrew Huberman and Peter Attia, and they were talking about strength and VO2 max as two of the biggest determinants to your lifespan and health span. A higher VO2 max is best, and the stronger you are and the more muscle mass you have are major factors at how long you're going to live and also how long you're going to live a good active life. And obviously I think we all understand strength training, how to get stronger. It's doing percentage work in that 70 to 85% of your 1 rep max window, doing complex lift, 3 to 5 sets, 5-ish reps. And then the anaerobic efforts, the sprints on the track, the assault bike intervals, the CrossFit Metcons, that's what's going to increase your VO2 max. It's not so much, you have to do a lot of endurance training to boost your VO2 max the same way that these short anaerobic efforts will boost your VO2 max.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that you're saying that, the research is showing and things along those lines. It's yes, and for a lot of females, I always tell them you have to start strength training. You have to start doing that because as they get older, a lot of them are still doing just the running, or because a lot of times people just will only do cardio because think how they think they're going to lose weight and feel better and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I'm no, we actually need to cut that back a little bit. Mm-hmm. And we need to start doing what you were just saying there, right? Those strength trainings, those sprints, those things like that are going to help you even more. It's interesting because I feel for so long, people have been advertising a different way. And mm-hmm. it's interesting. I think it's finally coming to light a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But people are always advertising, eat less and do a lot of cardio, and that's how you're gonna, feel your best. And it's that's actually not it at all.
Not at all. Yeah. Nourish yourself, build muscle mass. And yeah, if you're going to the gym and you're on a treadmill or on a stair stepper, it's much better. Again, this is to feel good and to boost your VO2 max and to have muscle mass. It's much better to do high intensity interval training when you're on those cardio machines. So what you said on the track where, you're sprinting a segment, you're recovering, you're sprinting a segment, you're recovering. That's going to do way more for you than, just going in and doing 45 minutes of steady state cardio. I think that is important to do that once, twice a week, but the other times you should be doing those high intensity intervals. If you're training for a marathon, an Ironman, anything like that, then that goes out the window. You need a lot of zone 2 training, but we're talking about feeling your best, lifespan, health span.
Absolutely. Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Cool. So do you still have your various programs online? What programs are you still offering?
So what I have, my main one is obviously my pull-up program called Pull-Up Revolution. It's a 30-day pull-up program. Again, it's gotten so many people their pull-up. This is now programming that I've been doing. I did in person for years, and then I finally started packaging it and tweaking it so that it's in one spot where you can do it and have it forever. So I have my pull-up program. I also have a core program. I just made a new one called Core Revolution 2.0. That was literally made because of my injury, like we were talking about. So that's to help you actually create a nice, strong foundation. You can do these workouts even before you do your own workout. So if you're I need something to kind of get me activated and I'm not used, I don't normally do that. This is perfect. Do it before your workout and then hop right into your workout. And then last, I have my Strong Feels Good program, which is after everybody was wait, what do we do after your core and pull-up program? What do we do? And I'm oh shit, I should make something. So that's the full body. I have a 90-day and a 365-day program. So it will literally tell you exactly what to do. It's all programmed out. And these are all programs that I've actually used myself, and I've also used with clients. So they're not just randomly made. This is after years of putting them together. So you can get any of those programs online.
So cool. I love the name of that. Strong Feels Good. That's so true. And these are all on your website. Is it your name?
Yeah. So you can go to angela-gargano.com and you can see all the different programs on there, and any ways to contact me are literally right on the site.
Awesome. This was so much fun. 9 Elements listeners can receive 20% off your first Restore service using the code ELEMENTS20 when making your first appointment. That code again is ELEMENTS20 to save 20% when booking your first service at Restore.